Howdy, this is Autonomous Architecture for our second video blog. In the last one we stated that we were going to study Christiania and its influence on Copenhagen and Denmark. I thought it might be a good idea to explain a little bit about Christiania and just give a short detail on the city. So originally in Denmark, hundreds of years ago, were under siege by Vikings, and so the city has had to undergo a lot of adversity. Christiania was formed in 1971 by squatters who inhabited the abandoned military barracks on this artificial island. Deemed a social experiment, Christianites experience a lot of flack from the government. They're trying to establish a city that is not a part of the European Union, which Sam and I find really interesting. So you used to be able to move in and build anywhere, and they fight really hard. Christianites fight really hard for this to remain. The architecture there, the design, the people, and the overall feeling in the city is something very unique to Christiania and something that we wish to explore more. I think I'll pass the mic over to Sam, and he can tell you a little bit about what we're going to do for this.
So I'm just going to explain to you what we were thinking and where we're going. Basically, we started off really broad. We knew that we wanted to kind of compare and contrast Christiania to Copenhagen. We realized they're both technically part of the same country, even though Christiania is a lot more autonomous than Copenhagen. We weren't exactly sure how to best go about comparing these. Initially we thought maybe of a timeline or a map or just even two renderings that might illustrate our point. But we were steered in a new direction by our teacher Ken, Renaud, and Rory. So from there we really started to narrow it down quite a bit. We tried to come up with different ways, different things that we could compare. Finally we kind of narrowed it down to the architecture and how building regulations differ from place to place, specifically Copenhagen and Christiania. And Ken had suggested that we go about trying to build a hypothetical building in both places and seeing how the hurdles we would have to overcome compare. So I started researching what it would take to build a house in Copenhagen, and Chris started researching what it would take to build a structure in Christiania, and I came up mostly dry for information on exactly how you go about building. I mean, it would have been a lot easier to just go and talk with somebody there, which we could have organized, but it seemed like we wouldn't have anything here that we could get done, and we would just be putting off all of our work to when we were there. And at that point Chris wasn't even sure if he was going to be going or not, but now that you are, I guess we could have gone back to that. Instead we started to just research the two cities themselves to get a little background, see how things might compare between the two. And then we started to think, well, why not just do a timeline of the two, see how they compare to each other through history, where they overlap, and how that relates to the world history that's going on as well. We were kind of steered away from that because another group was doing almost the exact same thing, but instead of doing architecture, they were doing designed products, such as forks and stuff like that. So we kind of nixed that idea. Next, we were supposed to come up with a project narrative, um, which yesterday we started to touch on a little bit, but um, now we've kind of nailed it down a little better. Um, and it goes, we will be exploring the influence and framework set by the social experiment of Christiania. Our hypothesis is that it has engaged directly the humanness inherent in regulations of architecture and explored alternative solutions to universal problems. Its solutions have greatly increased social well-being by lowering the standard of life, as you can see in one of the videos posted on our blog. This has radiated from Christiania to permeate the social and political fabric of Copenhagen and Denmark. Its open-mindedness has spawned great innovations in the fields of architecture and litigation. We are interested in tracing the influence of Christiania and its shape as it shapes Copenhagen's building codes and architecture. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're aiming for. And stay tuned.